You wanted blood, Twins fans? Well, you got it. The Twins fired hitting coach David Popkins, plus an assistant Tuesday, in the wake of Minnesota's late season collapse. Right thing? Wrong thing? Anything? Let's answer right after we get Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to destination for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. I'm co-host David Brown, a professional ball rider since 1998, a BBWAA member since 2012, and a Baseball Hall of Fame voter since this year. Please follow me on Twitter at AnswerDaveBrown if you like. No pressure. Across from me in cyberspace is Brandon Warren, a Twins watcher for 30 years or so who not long ago covered the team on a daily basis professionally. He asks that you elevate the discourse with him on Twitter at Brandon_Warren. Here's what's coming up on this podcast. Rocco Baldelli will be back. Derek Falvey will be back. Joe Polad will be back. David Popkins will not be back. The Twins, reports like the one from Dan Hayes in The Athletic say, will not bring back Popkins after his contract expired. They're also said to be removing assistant hitting coach Derek Shomon from the Major League staff, though he has a contract for 2025. It's possible he could be reassigned within the organization unless something has broken in the last hour. There's no reports yet as to the fate of Rudy Hernandez, who is Popkins' equal, more or less, as co-hitting coach. Hernandez has held a lot of positions in the Twins organization through the years, and it's possible he could be reassigned once the other coaches are replaced, or maybe he'll stay in his job. We'll see how it works out. Before we get into the details of what we know and think we know, let's find out from Brandon, who is bringing us this episode.
Well, good evening, sports fans. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
Well, that was fast. I wasn't ready to put back in the fire, just kind of like the Twins down the stretch.
I did my best to stretch it, but it's
you did fine. Well, the Twins firing Popkins is the first major change of the offseason, and we'll see how many others are coming. But it's not something that should have been unexpected. I don't think it was by most people. The Twins finished 10th in runs scored and 9th in WRC plus, which sounds convoluted, and it maybe is when you get to the formula, but it's a stat on fat graphs. I should start that website to do like a weight loss thing or a gain. WRC plus is a stat that stands for runs created per plate appearance, and it's based off weighted on base average. It's an all-encompassing number for offensive production. You know how you used to think, well, not maybe you, but your dad used to think, yeah, Mickey Mantle's hitting 300. He had a good year. Well, yeah. WRC is like that, but it takes into account more than batting average. Who the best hitter in the league is usually the person that leads in WRC plus. So Aaron Judge leads. Shohei Ohtani's up there too, but Aaron Judge has the best WRC. And the Twins were, what did I say, 9th overall. The Dodgers had the best WRC plus among teams. So anyway, here's how the stats broke down with David Popkins as hitting coach. In 2022, the first year Popkins was in the job, the Twins were 17th in runs scored and 10th in WRC plus. Last year, they were 10th in runs scored and 7th in WRC plus. This year, they were 10th in runs scored and 9th in WRC plus. So you see a certain consistency there, a little bit of improvement the last 2 years in runs scored, but it wasn't so much the overall numbers, but it was how they broke down literally, figuratively, in the last month or two of the season, plus some other situational hitting issues that got Popkins popped. They were, let's see, I had this ready to go. Oh, yeah. Prime Mackey on Twitter, I'm sure a good follower of the show, said with a few games left in the season, the Twins' expected weighted on base average. So basically, how hard they're hitting the ball, not so much the results. But with the bases empty, 10th in the league. With runners in scoring position, 21st in the league. And then with the bases loaded, you might have noticed that they really stink. Dead last in the league in weighted on base average with the bases loaded. That's 24% below league average. So when the stakes got higher and the people got on base and the pressure was on, the Twins did not have good approaches, or they shriveled up mentally, or some kind of combination therein. So I don't, I hate to see a guy lose his job, especially like when I could never be a major league hitting coach. I wouldn't know what to do with Royce Lewis. But do you see this as a necessary evil that has happened for the Minnesota Twins?
I mean, I'm not shocked. I had a friend reach out and ask me how shocked I was, and as soon as you knew that Rocco Baldelli was safe, and you kind of figure Pete Mackey is safe because the pitching staff, for as much as it was stretched and then stretched even further with the injury to Joe Ryan, I felt like he had his unit perform about as well as you could have expected. Meanwhile, yeah, the power outages, and I mean that not necessarily power, but just the outage of productive offense over long stretches this season just got to be too much to bear, I think. And fans have felt that way for the entire David Popkins tenure. Like, they've felt as though the offense was just far too inconsistent for the level of talent that these players possess. And so, no, not terribly surprised. Derek Shomon, dead ringer for DJ Khaled in my opinion. Again, not surprised. And, with Rudy Hernandez, he's been around a long time. They definitely have a high regard for him, and not that they didn't for Popkins or Shomon, but I think you're right. I think you're on there to something where either they'll have Hernandez reassigned, or he might stay in a supporting role with whoever they bring along. And I obviously don't have any inside information, but I would feel like they maybe go outside the organization. And now I don't know if they'll go with, some young up and comer, some offensive teams, AAA hitting coach, someone like that. I don't know. But I personally would try to get James Rowson back from the Yankees. The Twins offense under James Rowson was incredible, and he's just a great communicator. He's worked with Rudy Hernandez, so if you wanted to go that route again, you could. Now, with that said, would he want to leave the Yankees? I mean, for a big enough check, I would imagine so. And, we'll talk more about writing checks in our next episode and the lack thereof. But ultimately, I'm not shocked. Again, if Rocco is safe, usually, the crap falls downhill, and that's where Popkins got clapped.
You talk about potential replacements for Popkins and the kind of coach you're looking for. He was a guy who was very young and relatively inexperienced. He certainly didn't have any major league coaching experience when the Twins hired him. About this time, so more like the end of the month in October of 2021, Popkins was an up-and-comer from the Dodgers organization. He had spent 3 seasons with their high AAA team, being their hitting coach, and that's where. But he was, identified as a guy. Well, this is a guy to watch for, a future coach. Carlos Correa called him the best major league hitting coach he's ever had. He said that more than once. Yeah. So his, it sounds like even now the kind of guy you would want to hire. He's somebody who was kind of new school in looking at statistics and video, and able to mold hitters that way and advise them that way, but could also physically break down a swing, or could communicate with them, talk to them on a level that they understood. And the Twins seem to do pretty well with him. Here's the thing that I have to admit. I'm not sure how and why hitting coaches matter. And also, what's the difference between hitting coaches throughout the league? If the Twins had a different hitting coach this year, might they still have slumped anyway? I don't know. It's one of those things where it's obviously a necessary thing, or I think it is, because teams keep adding more hitting coaches. We mentioned that they fired 2 hitting coaches today, and there's still one left over. That is now typical around the league. There's like 3 guys.
It's like
who
the
are
old
hitting
college coaches with the Cubs. You ever hear about that?
Yeah, in the 60s,
Yeah, it's kind of like they're doing that now with hitting.
Right. And there's just more coaches in general. There's just, which is, I think there might be diminishing returns at some point. I think there probably should have been maybe more coaches than there used to be, but maybe now they have too many. I don't know. How many voices do you need?
Right.
And can it get overwhelming sometimes and confusing? Maybe. I guess that would depend on the coaches. I don't know. I don't have any idea, and I don't know how anybody but maybe the players, and not even them, could know if this is necessary and if this is going to work, getting a new coach in. I don't know, like, cause and effect wise, what we should expect from a hitting coach. Like, Royce Lewis, I think there might be an injury there. But if you look at, I saw I think it was Twins Daily. It was Twins Daily. Had a story today about, and I didn't actually read it because I had not subscribed. Maybe that'll change someday, but the gist was that he can't hit fastballs. So I looked it up, and it's true. Royce Lewis, expected slugging percentage through the season, for the whole season, 459 on fastballs. That's all sorts of fastballs. After July 1st, expected slugging percentage, 362. After September 1st, 278. It became impossible for Royce Lewis to hit a fastball. And I saw a couple comments say, yeah, you can tell from the video, hand position or whatever. And honestly, I didn't break it down that much. I'm not sure I would know what to look for in that regard. But is that a hitting coach thing? Is it a confidence thing? Is there an injury? We'll get to it in the next segment, maybe, that comment from Royce Lewis about who's to blame for the Twins season. He was basically like, well, don't look at me, but I'm just a cheap guy, so I'm going to take all the heat, I guess. So it's, I don't know. Does a hitting coach change all that? That's over my pay grade even as a analyzer of things.
Reminds me a little of when they swapped out trainers before whatever season they brought in Paparesta. Was it before this season? I want to say it was. But I'm having a hard time remembering for sure. Either way, though, yeah, more of a change for the sake of change, see what happens, because what's working or what's been going on isn't working. And so, yeah, I mean, and you did really lay out why Popkins sounds exactly like that second type of hitting coach, or rather the first type of hitting coach that I mentioned, the young up-and-comer. So maybe they do go the route of a more experienced hitting coach that's either been around the block, or maybe, I mean, I don't think they'll do something like this, but I did see someone say Nelson Cruz. And again, I think that naming a good hitter and making them a hitting coach is generally preposterous. But it wouldn't shock me if they did find a former player who was really intensely programmed on how to teach hitting. So it'll be interesting to see if they do the opposite kind of thing from what they've done here the last couple of different staff changes.
With that said, let's do our first commercial break, and then we'll talk more about the David Popkins firing.
Well, we got to give some love to PrizePicks. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because, unlike other apps, it's just you and the numbers. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's the best way to get in on the action, really, in sports, including most states: California, Texas, Georgia. I know Minnesota does it. I don't know about Missouri, but you could probably tell me because Missouri loves company there, Dave. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play, even if you have a player who gets injured. So if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your picks alive. And it also puts their members first, so withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. So when my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks. You'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game.
Maybe we can talk about this a little bit. It's a bit of a divergence from Popkins, but it's related, I think, somehow to the big picture, and that is what Lewis said. I think he was sort of assessing how everyone was being blamed for what was going on, and he said it kind of falls obviously on the players, but I didn't realize it was just on us. Now I know that we're going to carry a lot of the load, especially the young guys. The cheap guys is the best way to put it. It's hard to unpack all that. I think, my first reaction was that, it was upper management not coming through with reinforcements for them because they didn't want to spend any more money. So if that's the way it's going to be going forward, it's going to be on, the younger guys to sort of outperform their meager salaries if the team is going to improve. It's kind of an opposite of what Carlos Correa said, where, basically you can put all the blame on me, not being out there or not performing, whichever you prefer. And sort of as a veteran, as an expensive veteran, took it on himself clearly that, at least in what he said, was that the Twins didn't win because it was my fault and people like me. So, and that's not really what Royce Lewis said. Royce Lewis didn't necessarily, he sort of took responsibility, but he did it as if he didn't really believe that he had responsibility. And now we see the team has fired Popkins, who was a guy that Correa got along with very well. And I don't know about the relationship between Popkins and Lewis. I have no idea. But I do know, like I said before, that Lewis really started to struggle this year for the first time in his career, basically, professional or otherwise. And Popkins couldn't fix him. And now he's gone. I don't know how all this is related, but it seems like it is somehow related.
Doesn't really seem to me like Correa's comments and Lewis's comments jive that well. If Correa's taking on I don't know if you call it responsibility or the burden of the lack of production down the stretch, are we missing the point? If it's people say Lewis and Correa are speaking at or past each other.
Yeah.
Is it more like maybe a Carlos Santana thing? I don't really understand it. With that said, I mean, I think the world of Royce Lewis, but look in the mirror, bro. Like, look at how you hit 1 month, 2 months since returning, since you said you don't slump, and then you have like a 630 OPS after that or whatever it was. I just, at the end of the day, I don't put a lot of stock in what guys say. It's like guys saying they want to be here. What else are they going to say when the microphone's put in their face? So I don't know that there's any animosity there, but I also think there's plenty of blame to go around. And the idea that Lewis thinks he's getting more than his fair share, I really don't understand where that's coming from, because he was a pivotal player and he took on a more pivotal role, whether he wanted to or not, with Buxton and Correa out, and wasn't up to the task. Now, was he not up to the task because of injuries, because of not a sophomore slump, but, a course correction against the rest of the league? Any number of things could be that. But the way you describe his fastball issues tell me maybe it's one of the various maladies that cost him time. Because, if your oblique is bothering you, which I don't know if it was, but that can make it hard to open up on fastballs. If you've got a soft tissue issue in your that rhymed in your knee, can make it hard to open up on fastballs. And beyond that, he chased so many sliders off the plate, which is the kryptonite for so many right-handed hitters on right situations. So between not hitting fastballs and chasing sliders, I mean, it's not terribly surprising that he stunk down the stretch. And I don't know that he's not owning it, but I also think he's feeling like he's being unjustly blamed. And I don't see that as the case.
I mean, there are a few loud people on Twitter who've said, well, his, I mean, they've come out, and just fans have come out and said, well, bro, you're the reason that one of the big reasons that we tanked. I mean, people have come out and said that. I don't know, like, if he's seeing that or is putting a lot of stock into it or whatever, but obviously there's more. We're probably not going to get him in a room until the caravan if he does it. So,
right. I doubt he will.
Right.
Usually
it's and I go back to, well, Popkins couldn't fix it. Maybe that's one of the reasons why overall that they decided to change hitting coaches. But there was remember that one play where he went like head over heels, literally over first base. He ran into the guy at first base and like landed almost on his head.
His neck was like kind of backed over his body. Yeah. Is that against Milwaukee? Like Reese Hoskins, maybe?
I don't remember the team. It was like the last week in June when it happened. And it coincides, if nothing else, with the beginning of his statistical end. So he was not really the same after that. So I just wonder. I go back to an injury or whatever, and I said this before. I refer to what Kirk Gibson said on a Tigers broadcast. A lot of times, players don't understand why they're not hitting. They don't. It isn't about trying a bunch of different things or making adjustments. They don't know what to adjust to exactly. It's hard from the inside to see that, and that is a player. That's a perspective of someone, Kirk Gibson, who's, while not a Hall of Famer, was one of the better players of his time. So it is something that happens, and I just would not be surprised if there's an injury in there that got him down a road where there was a lack of confidence or whatever. Which is something that it's funny that we didn't think that Royce Lewis would ever have to deal with, but it figures that Major League Baseball gets you one way or another sooner or later. So
looks like it was June 4th. Yeah, June 4th against the Guardians, and he collided with Gabriel Arias.
Gabriel Arias, yeah.
Really hard play to watch now. I'm watching it again, and it's
that's a good point. When that happened, people thought, well, that's the end of his season. So,
or worse. Yeah. I'm gonna look up. Well, should we go to break and then while you're setting up the next thing, I'll look up his stats after that time frame because I think you're onto something there as well. So yeah, let's take that break. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game that your Vikings might blow a 28-0 lead to the Packers, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Might not be a bad place to make it a one-stop shop. It's basically your version of the Red Zone channel in the FanDuel app. Also, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It's an absolute no-brainer to jump in there and get your $200 in bets that you would not have had otherwise. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. And also Gametime. You got to remember Gametime. If you're looking for tickets to an outing, whether you want to go to a sports game, concert, theater, music, you name it, Gametime's got it. I used it the other day at the Wild game just to get a feel for what those tickets that I was sitting in would cost for the next preseason game, which was actually this evening. They beat Chicago, and then a regular season game. So you can do a lot of comparison shopping and see. Did I tell you how much, Dave, that would cost to sit on the glass for a Wild?
$300?
$397, which
$400.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare it to the regular season price, which I'm sure is about 3 or 4 times that, it might be a fun experience. But I'll tell you what, they only played about 4 or 5 guys I'd heard of. So maybe stick to the regular season, but Gametime absolutely is the way to go. You can toggle your all-in pricing, which is what I like to do to make sure that I know exactly what I'm going to be paying at the end. None of those bait and switch fees at the end where you pay a $10 convenience fee for whose convenience exactly? Nobody knows. And Game Time's ticket coverage is that you will be covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the game today. And the lowest price guarantee means you will get 110% of the difference if you find the same ticket in the same row elsewhere for cheaper. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and sports tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hey, Dave, can I hit you with some stats here that I pulled up?
Just don't hit me too hard. Hit me like the Twins in the last 3 weeks.
Twins, 16th in OPS with 2 outs, 18th with runners in scoring position, and 23rd with bases loaded. So again, just a little more fuel to your fire about how, just in the big spots, they just didn't deliver. And, the way sample sizing and all that would work, you would expect to trend towards your norms. If you have an 800 OPS on the season, first of all, your team had a good season, but you would expect the different situational splits to be trending toward that as the season goes on. Now, again, I know that's not realistic because there's just not, it's not realistic because that's not how collection of data and data works over the short to medium term as a regular season is. But just to see how out of sorts, out of whack they were in big spots, to me is just, it's kind of bewildering, if I can be frank.
So the new hitting coach, whoever he is, or whoever they are, is going to have to be somebody that is able to, I don't know, calm the nerves or tell them the right things to think about at the plate. Not just preparation beforehand, but when the situation comes to you and you dive in, you can't panic because the bases are loaded. You need to look at it as an opportunity. I think it's sort of a famous saying. I don't know who's giving credit for it, but when the bases are loaded, the pressure should be on the pitcher, not on the hitter. And I think that the Twins definitely reversed that. And so we look at how some individuals fared under. Well, we only really looked at Royce, but under Popkins. And we looked at the situational hitting, even overall, just down the stretch. They were top 10 offense overall. But in the final 40 games, from August 16th to the end of the season, the Twins were 24th in the league in runs scored. So that's not a good offense. And 25th in WRC. And they were a 92% chance to make the playoffs at that point, based on where they were at the time. I got that from Dan Hayes. And today they were watching the Kansas City Royals and the Detroit Tigers on TV win playoff games, and they were not a part of it.
Yeah, how about those road teams?
Yeah, I'm not terribly surprised that Cole Reagan's was just a little bit better than Corbin Burns, which might surprise some people. But the Orioles have lost like 8 or 9 straight playoff games, which is not all on the guys on this team, but some of it is.
Yeah, I think the Tigers came in having lost 5 or 6 straight too.
Right, and obviously they've been down for a while, and those games that they lost in the past don't necessarily have anything to do with those guys now, but still, it's 3-1. It was kind of a harrowing 9th inning, but the bullpen held on. So the new guy is going to have to calm. He's going to have to know how to teach the guys the right way to get out of slumps and keep their swings right. But he's also going to have to communicate a foolproof way to just not put all the pressure on themselves when the bases are loaded or when there's 2 guys in scoring position. It's pretty clear that was getting to them. I want to ask this though: who's the base running coach? Because I think the Twins need to fire that person too.
I think it's Tommy Watkins, isn't it?
Well,
hey, we do have to make one correction too.
Yeah,
I believe that there's an injury and a situation that we could isolate with Lewis. We'd have to dig into it, but the flip was in 2023.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, June 2023. So correction.
That was last year?
Yeah, it's hard to believe it, but it was a long time ago.
I wasn't even. We're gonna have to go back and edit that out then. Well,
we'll leave it. We're human. We're only human. So what you said you had a question to ask.
I am maybe. Yeah, got to fire the base running coach because the Twins, are terrible base running team. In 2022, they were 28th in base running runs on FanGraphs. So that's something that takes into account stolen bases, caught stealing, taking the extra base, doing whatever the hell it was that Carlos Santana was doing that one day. Last year, they were 21st. This year, they were 26th. So the last 3 seasons, they're one of the worst base running teams in the league. That's definitely something. That's not the hitting coach. And I don't even know if it's, talk about things that they should know how to do, run the bases. I don't even know if that's really on a coach or not. I'm kind of kidding when I say fire the base running coach because there isn't actually a base running coach. But
to me, that's more focused than anything.
But it keeps happening, and it doesn't seem to be getting better.
The third base coach, the efficacy of the third base coach could be called into question, and they were last in stolen bases this year. And, if you do that and you're ineffective percentage-wise, those things all hurt too. So there's a lot of play that can be tightened up to get back to, like they like to say, play the Tom Kelly way. Well, running bases, give Tom Kelly credit. His team is running the bases pretty well.
All right, so I apologize for getting the year wrong on a Royce Lewis injury. It was not my intention. Was he out a bunch of games after that? He should have been.
Seems to me it was less than expected because it was a harrowing injury. They used it in a commercial after that. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Don't do that.
The Twins did?
Yeah, it was weird.
All right, that's going to wrap this David Popkins episode up of Locked On Twins. For Brandon Warren, this is Dave Brown saying we're going to see you pretty soon, but definitely.
Whoops.
Like the. All right.
And we'll see you.
Playing me off the stage. It's all right. I'm done.
Got my shepherd's hook. Hey, we'll see you later. How about that?
No.